I'll just get started. If people come late, they'll pop on.
Okay, and the smart people are already muted. I am going to mute myself now.
Oh, yeah, mute. But actually, if you want to unmute and talk, well, not during the reading, but it's supposed to be kind of a discussion-oriented reading, free-form discussion.
Yeah, if people have questions, comments, whatever.
Yeah. So are we recording?
Yep, we are.
Okay, I didn't get a little message, but that's probably because I'm the host. Okay, so we're recording. All right, so it's from my new book, um, with this. The art is by the publisher, Henry Stanton, really beautiful. I did another book with him a few years ago. I just thought of this, so I didn't plan it, but okay, it's Dreamscapes, which I don't have here somehow. Um, it's kind of similar art, except it's like this is horizontal, this is vertical. So if you happen to get the two books, you can like it's complementary art and it's from the same press and the same artist. Um, and this is actually relevant to the end of the final story. So that maybe that'll give you incentive to read to the end. I don't know. All right, so I just have a short story and then there's a novella or it's either a novella or a long short story at the very end. So I'll read this very short story. It's called Limbo is a Happening Place. Jocelyn, one of the youngest souls in heaven, gently hopscotched over scrawny clouds and, not quite blinded by the light, approached the archangel Michael. If you please, sir, I have a request. Yes, Michael's sonorous voice replied, echoing and bouncing among the clouds. I'd like to visit Limbo. Are you not happy here, living eternal perfection? Of course I'm happy, but there does seem to be something missing. What could possibly be? You have eternal life, eternal comfort, eternal beauty. Some stimulating conversation. You see, Limbo has Aristotle and Confucius, Cleopatra and Virginia Woolf and Einstein, even Stephen Hawking. I know he's an atheist, but an interesting one. Hawking? Didn't we assign him to hell? I'm not sure, sir. He did spend most of his life paralyzed, so perhaps that's suffering enough. Plus, he was one of the great minds of the 20th century. Plus, maybe he did have good reason to be an atheist, not just because of his condition, but because the physical sciences do seem to indicate atheism as a logical conclusion. That's heresy. I'm sorry, sir. As you know, I myself was able to take the leap of faith, even though faith is often blind. That might be heresy too. I'm sorry again, sir. It's just that, well, I'd like to talk to God. God is horribly busy running the universe. That's true, and it does seem like such an impossible job. Still, at one point, I had believed that we each had a personal God who was such an amazing being that could converse with her. Her? How can such a powerful being be limited to the female gender? True, but should God be limited to male? After all, it's women who give birth. I know, said the archangel, and his brow furrowed into wrinkles so infinite that one could go mad gazing directly at them. Not wishing to turn to stone, Jocelyn twisted her head away. Still, I can't quite get used to using they as a pronoun, the archangel continued. The whole question of whether it's plural drives me batty. But back to Limbo, said Jocelyn. Can I visit, if just for a day? It would make heaven so much sweeter when I return. Confidentially, said the archangel, I'm sympathetic. It does get a little dull here. The problem is, if I make an exception for you, others would come flocking to me like a mass of pigeons beating their little wings, begging for breadcrumbs, asking to be made an exception too. Keeping the heavenly souls and angels in a harmonious order is a bit like herding cats. You can't imagine the bureaucratic nightmare. Tolstoy was wrong. Good people are good in such a variety of ways. Allowing you to visit limbo would throw the whole cosmic order out of whack. Heaven, purgatory, limbo, hell. It's nice, it's hierarchical, it's clean, everyone understands it. Frustrated, Jocelyn decided the very next day, or eon, or however time is measured in heaven, to sneak away to limbo. But as she crossed heaven's shimmering border, she found herself stuck in the infinitesimal infinity of time, space, and being. This was exactly what she had expected. Nonetheless, she had felt an inner demon compelling her. Perhaps Satan had fled heaven for similar reasons, but Jocelyn did not feel in the least satanic. Plus, standing there like a statue, paralyzed for all of time, seemed only slightly duller than heaven. Perhaps she would feel different in 100 million years or so. In any case, she had no choice now. At least she felt no pain, not even the minor discomfort of, say, a toe stubbed or a limb falling asleep. Sooner than expected, "See here," came a familiar, sonorous voice from behind. Jocelyn could not turn to face the archangel, but she knew it was him. "Yes? I've discussed it with the Most High, the big boss, the top enchilada, the divine one themselves." Or is it themselves? I still haven't figured this pronoun thing out. Yes, they've agreed that you can leave for limbo on condition that you never return. Permanent exile. But we have to keep it quiet so the other angels don't know. Luckily, you're young and relatively unknown. We'll create a simulacrum of you to join in the heavenly chorus. Yes, shouted Jocelyn, pumping her arm in victory. Do you have to be so enthusiastic? Said the archangel. It makes it look like I shouldn't be so divinely delighted to be hanging in heaven for all eternity. Sorry, said Jocelyn. I was swept away in the moment, thinking only of myself. I should have had more consideration for your feelings. That thoughtful regret is why you were eligible for heaven in the first place. I truly hope you're happy in your new situation in limbo. And in a flash, Jocelyn was gone. The archangel slumped his angelic shoulders in defeat and turned back to his administrative tasks. He wondered if perhaps one day he, too, would decide to leave heaven for limbo. It seemed likely that word would somehow get out to all the souls in heaven, and more of them would be demanding to leave. It might very well be the first step in a grand exodus, an upheaval in the cosmic order. Eternity would never be the same. Okay, that's it. Questions, discussion, philosophical points? Oh, I have lots of thumbs up from Dan. I didn't, can I do that on mine? That's an effect I haven't seen.
Oh, Albert, did you have something that you wanted to ask or say?
Uh, I noted, could you talk about the title of the volume? Did I see the Oversoul, Church of the Oversoul?
Church of the Oversoul. Yeah, that's okay. The title I picked, I will. I couldn't come up with a good title, so I just picked the most interesting title of any of the stories. It's not actually any more important than any of the other stories. In fact, the novella was the original title, but the novella has a kind of a boring title. What was the novella called? It's just Piffelmeyer. And what? Lisa is shrugging, but since she's muted, I don't know what she's saying.
That's not very boring.
It's Piffelmeyer? Do you think Church of the Oversoul is more boring than Piffelmeyer? Well, I talked about it with various people. I have, well, I don't know. I have probably a better name for my next volume, because I have it like part of the way done, but its concept is different. Because this is like some medium length. That's the shortest story in it that I just read. It's some short to medium length stories and then some long stories. Because as some of you know, I do stories like this long, and I wanted to put all those together. So I had the concept for this other book, but why did I do this one first? I don't even know. Oh, I had longer stories, and it's really, really hard to publish long stories. The shorter, that's what I found, the shorter it is, the easier it is to publish. Maybe I should do haiku. But anyway,
Well, there's always 101 stories. You got to work your way into that.
oh,
There's a place I
101
know that
words,
does 50 story,
50 word stories, you
50
mean?
word stories. Yeah, that's Blink Ink, but they have to be on a theme.
I know, but I object to like rules and themes. Like I basically want to write what I want to write. And if it's like 102 words, I don't want to have to like edit out a word.
Well, I just wanted to, I do think the notion of the oversoul does apply to that story that you just read as well. So
Oh, why is
I think,
that?
well, in general, the idea of wanting to join others in limbo and joining everyone together, and then, from Plato's Timaeus to Emerson, the oversoul is a,
No,
I think it does, I think I've thought it applied to that story as well. So
okay.
I think it's a
It,
large church that includes
okay.
limbo.
I have a dumb question that I should know. I thought the Oversoul was just an Emersonian. Did Plato use it?
Oh, in the Timaeus and his creation of the world. Yeah.
Oh, he called it the
Yeah,
Oversoul.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Oh, well,
And
now
that
I
all
have to read
souls
that.
come in, yeah. But anyway, no, but I mean in many places. So it's a big church. And I thought the idea that it includes limbo was nice and it includes
Oh,
therefore
thank you.
everybody.
But actually, the actual Church of the Oversoul in the book is a very small sect.
Well, that would work too.
Well,
Anyway, thank you.
sure. More questions. See, I can't talk because my voice goes, so people need to join in and not make me talk too much. But people are intimidated and have nothing to say.
I'll be teacherly and call on people.
No, don't call on people. It's mean. See, you see Kate kind of going, ah. No, okay, no other questions or philosophical discussion. It's a light story. Maybe Albert can read levels and deep meanings into it. Maybe not. He's looking. Okay, but he can probably find a Church of the Oversoul meaning in every story in the book. Oh, did someone
Dan raised his
join us?
hand.
Oh,
Yeah,
Dan,
it's very good. Um,
you're
I was thinking a little bit about your process. Does like an idea or a concept come to you, and then once you get that idea, then you start to like fill it out with the details and the humor and the dialogue and the musings? I mean, is there like a
yeah,
kernel? Is that how it
that,
works?
that's my process. You got it. That's pretty much it. I sometimes I have stretches of dialogue or scenes more worked out, and sometimes it's just the concept. But Marianne and a lot of other people like to go to workshops with prompts, and that worked for me when I was just getting into writing poetry, joining her at workshops. But then I would go and everything I wrote from a prompt was so bad, and I hated it so much. I guess her process is like the opposite of mine in every way. Also, like when she writes a story, she kind of just writes the characters. She keeps growing the story infinitely, and Lisa knows that, right? Because you read her stories, because you're on both of our lists. So she just keeps adding new characters and they have more connections, and it's like this infinitely growing thing. Whereas I write a story and then I'm done with it. and I never do the same characters. Although I have a draft of a story where I don't know if this is going to work or not. I actually refer to the Church of the Oversoul in another draft of a story that I've written, which is new for me. Um, you know, that Marianne, it's all interconnected. Okay, more questions
So
or
I'm gonna ask a quick question.
sure.
So you said you're working on a new volume. I've seen your writing for a long time, and it's thematic in a certain abstract way, I think.
Oh yeah, sure.
So does the volume, when you say a new volume, does the volume hang together, or is it a random assortment that you arrange for a particular, because it's like a body that can be a book?
It's half and half because, I basically have a certain amount of different stories or poems or whatever, and then I think, well, I've got enough for a volume. So
Yeah,
that's
you
the
kind
main,
of answered it because you said each one is its own thing, but
yeah.
then you also said you're preparing another volume, so
Well, I was
it made
preparing
me
that
wonder.
before this. That's been a concept for a long time, and I even had a name for it. And strangely enough, I had that name for like a couple years for this volume, which I still don't have. But I don't want to put out a volume more than once every 2 years. And yeah, because, you know, people don't want new volumes from me more often anyway. But so it'll be a long wait for the next volume. Um,
I just had a short comment that I
oh
just
sure.
like the whole idea of maybe heaven is boring.
Well, I
But
stole that from David Byrne on the Talking Heads.
oh,
I was
well,
going to say that's a love we both share, Ethan.
You're also a Talking Head
Oh
fan.
yeah.
I found out that if you know who, is it David from?
Oh, from yeah.
Yeah, he's a huge Talking Heads fan
Oh,
also. But yeah. Anyway, no, I have that. Like I cut this out, but I actually have two. Is it epigraph or epigram?
oh, epigraph. Yeah.
Okay, so I have two epigraphs to that story. I guess I skipped them, but I'll read them now. The first is heaven is a place where nothing ever happens. Talking Heads. So I stole the idea from the Talking Heads. Um, the next one is Heaven is Hell in Reverse, which is an Elvis Costello song that I'm sure that that's a reply to the Talking Heads song. Okay, I don't know how. I know Dan knows probably both. Yeah, Dan, you know all that. We're a strange age group that doesn't fit anywhere, right? You agree with that? Because we're pretty much the same age. So we're too young for the Beatles and too old for, Gen Z, which was a big. Oh, Roberta, you're talking, but muted. But I think she's talking to someone else.
Nobody's too young for the Beatles.
Well, you're the right age.
Well, thanks. I said nobody's too young for
Oh,
the
nobody's too young. Well,
My
right,
kids-
but they were like our older siblings. Were in,
No,
and then we all loved them, but then I went away to college and I said, oh, there's this music that's my older siblings don't even know anything about.
Well, I mean, the thing about people our age and the Beatles, they were, to use a term from grad school, they were always already broken up.
Yeah.
And, in fact, I knew Paul McCartney and Wings before I knew about the Beatles because, his songs were all over my mother's radio
Okay. See,
station.
I don't know Paul McCartney on his own so much, but that's a bit of a digression there. All right. So any more comments before I move on to? Okay. So I am now going to move on. The next part is from the novella called Piffelmeyer, which may or may not have a less interesting name. than the Church of the Oversoul. All right, so I wrote the first draft of this probably in around the year 2000, right, Marianne? It was kind of a mess. Okay, here's my initial conception. I thought, oh, I'll do a whole novel in little prose poems rather than in traditional prose. And I'll make it sort of like a Jackson Pollock. I don't love Jackson Pollock, but it was like that's just all these random strands. So I was gonna do a whole novel in that. So I had this big mess with some dead ends and various issues that I showed it around and people didn't like it. Well, it also dealt with certain topics that, but anyway, it was sitting for a long, long time, and then I completely and utterly rewrote it. So even though the idea was all these prose poems and like a mess of strands, it actually does have like your basic story structure where, you've got a beginning, a middle, and end. It's got characters, internal conflict, external conflict, and it has a rising action leading to a climax. So that, don't be off put by the highly experimental original idea, which it still also maintains kind of at the same time. All right, so I'm not gonna read it from the beginning. I'm gonna jump in, read one part of it, and then I'm just gonna read a few parts of it that might give you an idea of the major character and a couple of major themes, and then one other character. So the major character, who is Alvin Piffelmeyer. So here's a description. A face stared at Alvin in the mirror. Stringy red hair, cheeks too round to be believed, glasses so thick that the eyes were watery discs. Who was this stranger, this alien, this mask? Surely not him. Not Alvin, but what others perceived as him. But this him, this physical body, was far from the real him, the one he knew. Perhaps others would at some time know this real self. Perhaps a woman, the true one whom he had not yet met. But even this imagined woman would never be real, would, in the flesh, be most interested in herself, her own life, her own story. People are all self-involved. God, perhaps, would know the real Alvin, but compared to God, he was but a speck of dust. This God, Joe G. God, would surely have more important concerns should he or she happen to exist. Joan Q. God, and if he could be seen for himself by some all-knowing, all-caring entity, would this be the same self that Alvin Piffelmeyer saw in himself? Wasn't he just a strung-out collection of thoughts, memories, feelings created by the unlikely circumstances of his unlikely life? Imagine the string of coincidences necessary to create this one person at this one point of existence, from the Big Bang to the boiling, roiling earth to the impossible creation of life to the almost impossible crawling up from the sea and becoming human to his birth in an insignificant town in anywhere USA, from two parents themselves the products of impossible circumstances who, by all rights, should never have conjoined. Coincidences upon coincidences, impossibilities upon impossibilities. By all rights, Alvin Piffelmeyer should not exist. His existence was a statistical impossibility. And since he did not really know who he was or why, where he came from, where he was going, he was not sure if he did exist. Of course he existed, thinking then being, page problem, being then peeing, the endless tides of history, the endless streams of human circumstances passing out his bladder, the endless streams of thoughts passing through his brain, going from whence to whence and for why. and the product of all this stared from the mirror, two discs swimming in a thick plastic ocean. What were they looking at? What did they want, and why? Why were they observing him, staring at him? Okay, then I've marked different sections here. Oh, this is about, there's a house with various oddball figures that's central to the book or the novella. So this is about a discussion about the house. I can't figure this house out, said Angelina. It seems to be a typical house of graduate students, but no one here seems to be a graduate student. It is a house of graduate students, said Derek. It's just that none of us happens to be a graduate student right now. We've all either gotten master's degrees and decided not to go on for the PhD yet, or else dropped out. Except for Alvin, of course, who wised up and dropped out early. What about Daisy? I met her in a contemporary art, politics, and literary theory class. She's the one who introduced me to this house. But you know what? She dropped to a low, confidential voice. I don't even really like her. I just come here because it's the most interesting place to hang out on Sunday evenings when I should be studying. Daisy calls herself a part-time graduate student, but she never manages to finish any actual courses. But why Sunday? It's the only time we can all agree on. Dottie's working Friday nights, and Daisy talked us into reserving Saturday for other activities. She says it's too important a night for our little parties. Okay, then a space, dramatic pause. Who should show up at the party but a tall, gaunt figure with thick glasses and stringy hair? Fogman. Alvin glanced at him across the room, not quite wanting to talk to him. Although no one in the house called people by their last names, everyone called Fogman, Fogman. Alvin didn't even know his first name, nor who in the house had invited him. He just seemed occasionally to materialize in the living room. Perhaps he had never been invited, and everyone just assumed he was someone else's friend. Oh. Okay, a couple pages later, my sticky came loose, so it's a little hard. But okay, couple pages later, both conversation and food having dwindled on the front porch, Alvin had moved into the living room, where somehow he found himself alone with Fogman. Although he rarely drank, the shot of tequila he'd taken on the porch had loosened his tongue so that, without knowing how it happened, he found himself talking about Nancy. I can't move 5 feet without running into her. The grocery, the library, walking on the street, everywhere I go, there she is. It sounds, said Fogman in his mysterious, high-pitched voice with strange undulations that sounded as though he had never recovered from puberty, although who of us has, really? As though the forces that rule the universe have a plan for the two of you. The forces that rule the universe? What are you talking about? There is a connection, a possibility. Now your actions will determine if it is fulfilled. Huh? I don't go for that mystical mumbo jumbo. Usually Alvin didn't like to contradict people, but he found Fogman so tremulous and annoying that the words just leapt from his lips. In case you haven't noticed, this isn't Star Wars. This is the real world in which not much of anything happens, and when it does, it happens for no reason whatsoever. Fogman lifted his huge black eyes, and Alvin decided that he looked like Groucho Marx, a tall, scrawny, uptight, mystical, fraudulent version of Groucho Marx with no sense of humor whatsoever. All right. A little bit later, no. Oh yeah, I do want to read this part. When Alvin and Nancy did get together, it was at Kazan's coffee house. And then there's some atmospheric description of the coffee house, and what they ate. Um, Stumbling among the array of tables in the dim light, they selected a small one hidden in a faraway corner. Alvin had no idea what he would say, but Nancy spoke first. Piffelmeyer is an unusual name. Is your family German? Eastern European. So are you Jewish? Something seems Jewish about you. No, said Alvin. Well, I do have 2 Jewish grandfathers, so in a way I'm half Jewish. But Jewishness is handed down through the mother, so I'm not really Jewish at all. Now can I ask you a question? Are you Chinese? Lee is a Chinese last name. No, she said, slightly annoyed, but people always think that. Actually, Lee is an old English name, like Sarah Lee, I guess. What a stupid, boring name, Nancy Lee. But you don't look English. Oh, I'm half Japanese on my mother's side. So you know Japanese? No, English only. I used to be proud of that, but I'm not anymore. I'm as American can be. As American as cherry pie. As American as violence and sex on late night TV. Okay, then I'm going to leap ahead. Now, this is more about, you don't really need to hear more about Fogman, do you? I think that's it. That's a preview. You get 3 characters. I guess you get some major themes. Any questions? Oh, Lisa's speaking, but muted.
See, you brought up the issue of Jewishness, and I mean, you're obvious. I'm Jewish. You're Jewish, but is there a Jewish sensibility to your writing? I mean, in something in the voice and the comedic and the sort of philosophical and sort of that struggling quality of the thinker, this voice. I don't know. What would you point to, if anything?
I can't answer the question. I will say we have a friend, Mary. It's Stacy. Some of you know Stacy. I was calling myself post-Jewish at one point because I wasn't raised religious. And I guess Israel is the other major reason that Jews identify as Jewish these days. But it's kind of hard. It's gotten a lot harder, and it was even hard back then. But now it's really hard, right? I guess okay, I'm of the people of Einstein. I'll say that. Except that I'm a lot my math skills are much worse than Einstein's. But we do have the beards, right? So yeah, so Stacy
Yeah,
was
my father did think you looked like a rabbi.
once I had the beard. So I Stacy was insisting that I was Jewish because I had a Jewish sense of humor, but I said, well, you need to define what a Jewish sense of humor is. And I guess some people would define it as, humor of the oppressed or humor from, the bottom of the heap. People who have angst and difficulties, but then why couldn't I call myself black? Because isn't that like African American humor also? So I don't know. I feel
Something to say.
yes. Maybe.
You were raised by a very Jewish father. It's pretty hard to bypass. I mean, not religious wise, but personality wise and philosophically and all that. So it's kind of hard to bypass that.
The sisters swoop in and go, "You're no way, Ethan."
All right, but let me ask you this: I guess you could say value education, right? So wouldn't that make me Asian? And actually, a certain sense of humor. So I could be kind of black if it's sardonic underdog humor. I feel there is something Jewish because if I look at the writers who most inspired me, you got Kafka, I would say like people like Isaac Bashevis Singer and Grace Paley. Whereas there's like Toni Morrison is a wonderful writer, but I really feel I in no way write like Toni Morrison. I'm sure there are a lot of others, or William Faulkner, right? I've read them. They're amazing writers, and I don't think I have anything like their voice.
But just briefly on that, a story that I love is by Delmore Schwartz called In Dreams Begin Responsibilities. It's a pretty famous story in a lot of anthologies. In the first part of the long piece you read, where you talk about the unlikely getting together of your parents and then all these strange circumstances that got you to be you. That's very much a theme in that story. I don't know if you know that story, but
I don't
he has
know.
a much more there's less sort of the humor and kind of almost absurdist quality and into your writing. His is much more melancholy, but you might. I would be curious. It's like considered
I
a
just
classic in a lot
downloaded
of Jewish
it. I
anthologies.
should have. I never read it.
Okay, I don't know. I thought of it a little
I
bit
know
when
the
you were.
title.
Yeah.
I just downloaded the PDF. I'll read it shortly. Now I'm really curious.
But Amy's right. You infuse, I don't think it's just the oppressed and you can equate it. You infuse so many cultural components you grew up with.
Okay, I still always want a definition. Like what components? Like I feel like you're right, and yet I can't really say why. Like there's something about the speech.
When I finally manage to buy the book and read the stories, I'll try to answer that question.
Okay.
It's
At
like a
least with a
really
couple
big
of
question.
examples.
That's a question that would take a long time to answer if
Yeah,
possible.
I wonder if you could have like linguists or cultural anthropologists, not for me specifically, but what are some, and is that an American Jewish trait? Because there's also a whole other branch which, you know, um, in the Middle East, I wonder if they have similar traits or if that's an Eastern European trait that, oh, well, Monica has a, okay, okay, humor and mysticism. Oh, humorless Marx? Did I talk about humorless Marx?
Groucho.
That's
Oh,
how
Groucho Marx.
Groucho Marx.
Right,
That's how Alvin described Fogman as a
right.
humorless Groucho Marx.
Does anyone get the little joke about Fogman's name? Nobody does? Okay. Maybe it will hit you one day. Um, okay, so let's see. Connection or disconnection between humor and mysticism. They're they're big in all the stories, and yet I have no idea why. I'm not sure. Okay, my feeling about authors and being able to interpret your own writing, I don't think the author always understands their own writing. I think there's a famous story, not really that famous, but Isaac Dinesen, some critic supposedly got one of her stories wrong and she demanded that he apologize. But I think like the subconscious is really important in the stories and that we don't understand our own subconscious necessarily. So I don't think the writer knows all the themes of the stories. And I also think there's like a whole social context, and we're always in a social context. And so we can't help but being influenced by that, whether we're conscious of it or not, right? So you're reflecting your subconscious, and you're also reflecting society at the time and the assumptions of that society, which you might not even really know because you're in it, right? So I don't think the author is like the arbiter of their own work. Dan is agreeing.
I think too much analysis will make you stop writing.
Well, you have to just write. Then you can rewrite. I mean, a lot of my stories I could say, okay, here's how they're structured and here are some themes, right? So I'm not saying I can't analyze them at all, but I don't think it's like the sole way of looking at them. Although it's definitely possible to misunderstand a story too. Okay, humor and mysticism. Yeah, there's the mysticism might come from Isaac Bashevis Singer to an extent. Yeah, Dan is shaking his head, yes. Or it's just from my own weird struggles. I mean, everyone has some struggles with that, right? It is probably a heavier theme in me than in some other authors, or more
I think
explicit.
Monica is complimenting you in that usually those two things seem separate, like
Oh, maybe it's because the
you
world and our
you
existence. Oh, go on.
you tend to bring them together in a very unusual way, humor and mysticism. I think it's kind of a compliment that the two all often seem separate, but somehow you're able to combine them.
I
And I
think
think
that okay,
that's a great thing.
I think that basically our existence is kind of absurd and mystical at the same time. So I think that's the connection, is that even the fact that we exist is absurd and that we're trying to figure out why and whether there's meaning. Yes. So Kim figured out the Fogman connection. Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, I kind of like being able to have like a comments written, and Zoom has some advantages, right? Although on the other hand, you're kind of hopping back and forth between the discussion and the comments. Okay. Um, okay, more questions or thoughts or answers? No? I believe short is beautiful when it comes to, I mean,
Kate has a comment.
okay. Oh, too much analysis interfering with writing? I meant psychiatric, not literary. I was I was in therapy about 2 months in my whole life. I don't really trust the therapist. Um, I don't know. In my tennis group, there are two different, I think they're both psychologists. Or is one a psychiatrist? I think they're both psychologists. One is completely nuts, and I'm sure if I got if I went to him, I'd come back in much worse shape. Although maybe that's a good way of maintaining patience too. But anyway, another is a wonderful person. So I told her, oh, of all the psychologists in our group, I would definitely pick you. But if I ever went to a psychologist. Yeah, I don't. Oh, but Kate, you write wonderfully, but I don't know whether you've been to psychologist much. Digressing about psychology, I feel that maybe without having been psychoanalyzed or really having any expertise to even make any comments, I have this gut feeling that it's too much about the about yourself, and that maybe it's unhealthy to just obsess over yourself. And if it were like more about your relationship with other people, and to an extent responsibility. I mean, I believe in responsibility, but I also believe in, you know, mutual responsibility. So if, I don't think that means you have to sacrifice to people who don't deserve it just because they're in your family. But I do think that, like, there's a web of responsibility, and I worry that people being analyzed could maybe just be so self-obsessed that they forget about that.
Well, I think also it's an issue in literature in general. You know, you write a novel, and I think because of, the prevalence of psychology and psychiatry, that people think, oh, that novel's really about you. You know, the mother is your mother, the father is your father.
It's probably true. Well, it's not that people think that. I think that the actual relationship is really complicated, because if they're not you, then could you really write about them? But a couple of the characters in this book are just loathsome, right? One is completely loathsome in every way, who's in one of the short stories, and one kind of struggles to not be loathsome and grows a little bit in self-awareness. But when it comes down to it, he's still pretty much loathsome. But see, now maybe I'm imposing my interpretation on people before you've even read it. So, like, if I don't have that side to me, could I be writing that? But obviously, a lot of these stories, plus I stole from some different people's lives. I even asked permission, which I don't know that most authors do. Like I said, oh, I kind of borrowed your story. I hope you don't mind. And no one forbid me. So, and of course, it's going to be completely different when I write it. But I did borrow from other people's stories because they were interesting and worth exploring. But of course, if it's in my voice and with my style, then it's not the same person, but it's just, yeah, there's at least three. Well, some of them are just weird sci-fi type ideas, right? I have like two little sci-fi stories, one fantasy, which I read the fantasy one, right? And then I think pretty much else is what you would call literary fiction or realistic fiction. So, sometimes people have fantastical dreams, but I don't, in this story, like, probably too often I'll end a story with a weird dream. But I don't think, do I do that in this book? I know Bill read the whole book because he's one of the people that wrote a blurb for it, which was very kind of him. Do I have weird, oh, the Book of Joe, that does end with a weird dream, but I don't think anything else does.
Yeah, I didn't find that a pattern.
Yeah, I think I do it in some other stories that aren't in this book. Or maybe I don't know. That's kind of can be a really good way to end a story, because it's kind of metaphorical. And okay, bye, Lisa. Thank you for your comment.
Goodbye, Lisa.
Oh, wow. So only Amy is left. But okay, they both agreed that we're a very Jewish family, but Amy thinks it's so obvious it doesn't need to be said. What?
I object.
You
I did
object?
not say that we're a very Jewish family. I
But
said you were raised by a father with a very Jewish personality.
you don't think our mother had a Jewish personality?
No.
But she was also Jewish.
He was raised in a Jewish ghetto. She was
That's
raised
true.
in Alliance, Ohio, the only Jewish family in town.
That's true. Yeah. So they were completely different back upbringing.
Yeah. I mean, there's elements, but anyway.
Right.
I object
All right.
because we're not a very Jewish family.
Okay. Well, it's true. My father and I have similar senses of humor. Okay, more questions or thoughts?
Wait a minute. I have a question for all you writers. When I read novels, I'm often amazed that a woman author will choose her main character and to speak in a male as a male. That the main character, or that a male will have a woman as the main character. And that always strikes me as, is that, I mean, it happens a lot, and it just always seems strange to me. Is that hard to do, to write from the point of view of the other sex? I mean, when you say you write from your own point of view, that cannot be your own point of view. So I'm just throwing that out there.
Well, it isn't. It isn't. Any thoughts? I have a bunch, but
I was going to say, whenever I'm writing, to me, form follows function. And so I don't find that. I mean, I've written stuff where the female is the lead, but that's not something I sought out. It worked out better that way, for the story itself.
okay. Other thoughts?
Okay, I'll jump in.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah, with my interconnected stories. Um, at first I was very hesitant about taking a male point of view. That in the stories, the first few stories, they're all women. And I was, one of the names I was thinking of calling the novel was Widow's Walk. But I think at a certain point, I decided, hey, I have the story that I want to tell, but it would be better if I told, in fact, I kind of had to tell it from Frankie's point of view, because, it was what was happening to him. He was in his rental. I'm not going to call it an apartment because it's not really it's like an ex motel. And the story I felt had to be his point of view, his trying to start his own life, maybe waiting for his ex-wife to come back to him. And so, it was from his, and I think I had to figure, okay, what is he going to do? What is he going to think? What is he going to look at? How does he react to different characters? And I remember when I brought it to our writers group, I asked, well, does he seem like a guy? And one person in the group said, oh, the only thing that he did that wasn't, you know, manly was that he decided, he held himself back from going with his girlfriend. He admitted that, yes, he was thinking of going back to his ex-wife.
Yeah, although I think, plenty of men have ambivalence. And was it a woman who made that comment or a man?
Oh, yeah, it was a woman.
Yeah, no, I think men are very ambivalent a lot of the time.
Yeah, and that actually, I would disagree with that reader.
Yeah.
But I would say that, yeah, men have qualms.
Yeah, of course. Maybe they hide it a little bit more because
Yeah.
it's not supposed to be manly.
And actually, his other girlfriend did kind of
Oh,
push.
bye, Carol.
Bye-bye.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank
sure.
you.
It's time.
Okay, so I've been told I have a few stories from a woman's viewpoint, and a couple people that I don't fully trust told me that it wasn't convincing and I couldn't really take on the voice of a woman. I don't know. One of them, the woman was traditional and kind of passive. So maybe the person didn't really want me to portray that kind of a woman, but I don't know. But there is a whole issue which I think is related, like, can you portray someone of a different race or different culture, and how much, and people have been taken to task badly for trying to do this and not pulling it off. But at the same time, how much should you limit writers and what they can write about? So it's a very tough issue. I guess now we have sensitivity readers who I went to someone and said, I need your perspective because can I write about this? And she said, well, you probably need to write the whole thing from a different perspective, because she really liked the idea of the story. But I did rewrite it from a different perspective. And actually, I added a character and that made it a richer story. But anyway, I'm still like very conflicted about the idea. Like, you have to do your research. Like, I think I never read the novel The Help, but I read about it that a lot of the dialect in it, the Black dialect, is actually not grammatical. And if you know anything about linguistics, you know that like every dialect is grammatical. It's just its own grammar. And so this is like pretty bad and not really doing your research and respecting the culture, right? So that would definitely be an issue. But at the same time, if you do your research and respect the culture, or try to, like if I try to write about 19th century Black people, can a 21st century Black person do that either? Like, there's always a gap. So, how much do we just write about our own experiences, and how much should we be trying to project and understand and write about others, but we might get some stuff wrong. So I don't know if other people have thoughts.
I get the impression these days the advice is don't try. But not
Yeah, I know, but
because it's impossible, but just because it's better to not. I don't know. There was a local author who got a lot of shit about what she
I
wrote,
know.
and it was, yeah.
I
She
don't.
also won some awards, though. I don't know.
Right. That was American Dirt, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, she got a lot of blowback, and I never read the book, but
Mhm.
I like the title is a very clever play on words. That's what I noticed about it.
I
But
did read that book, and I know she got blowback, but it was well researched and it was a very compelling story.
yeah. Bye. Yeah, I know. It's that's what I think is some people get blowback that's unfair just because they're from the. Also, she had some Mexican heritage, even, right? Yeah, I know. Carol, who just left, also loved that book.
Have people read the book James? Has anybody read James?
No, we're going to read it this summer for our book club.
I
Yeah,
read that. I
because
liked it a lot.
yeah, I liked it a lot. But what he did, which was really clever, I thought was, and I mean, he had to have made it up, but that um, a black slave talking to white people talked totally differently than talking to his own community.
Well,
And
that's a real thing, but he just took it to such an extreme that was
yeah, I mean, who
like,
knows if it was real or not at that time, but did people
Oh,
actually write about that being real? I don't know.
yeah, that's definitely a real thing, just
I'm
not to
sure
the
it was real.
degree. Yeah.
I
But
think
he
it's
did such
still
a great,
real.
he did such a, well, I listened to it and he did such a great job of making that point that,
Mhm.
you know, that a dialect can be for a lot of reasons, that it's not necessarily a real thing. So,
Oh, that's this October. I thought it had come and gone because I always miss it. That's a great festival and it's always at the wrong time. Oh, Marianne, we will go to that festival no matter what. Monica, you're involved with putting that festival together, right? Or do you just know about it? Just a little bit. Okay. Marianne, is your hand up?
Oh, no. Oh, my hand shouldn't be up.
Oh yeah, it's still up. Oh no, you know what? That's my mouse that turns into a hand when it's over.
Oh, okay. Yeah, did you read the rest of what Monica have to say? You know, the passage starting intriguing question about adopting voices of people different from us.
Thing. No, I just read the pop-up. Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, again, if you do it right or try, I I think we've gone too far in the pendulum against adopting any voice different from us, and I think it constrains writers. Um, I I do think there's plenty of stereotypes and bad writing and reducing people from other cultures, a very bad history. So I kind of understand why, but it's yeah. Um, Shakespeare, like what he did the Moor of Venice, and he also did Shylock. Okay, should he have done Shylock? Well, in a way, it's a horrible stereotype, and in a way, it's a sensitive portrayal that shows his inner conflicts, right? Had not a Jew eyes, and that speech. I don't know yeah, of course, that was also written in a very different time period. His women characters are supposed to be like very psychologically real also. Which, oh, Amy, you've seen like a million Shakespeare plays, right? Like, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
no, not a million, but
A lot.
um, no, I mean, it's a different time. It's like I'm still really annoyed that I can't ever go see the Mikado again.
Oh, because
I mean, the whole thing, like, you can't. I hate it when you judge Shakespeare by modern,
or
or
even
when you
Gilbert and Sullivan.
judge Gilbert and Sullivan
I mean,
by
there's some
modern
stuff that,
standards, and the Mikado is all of a sudden like gone. You know.
right.
So you know, he
Oh, we're gonna have a version of the
Shakespeare writes great characters, whether they are modern or not.
right.
So yeah.
We're gonna have a version of the Mikado called the Bravata. You were there, Marianne, right? Where's that gonna be?
Yes, I will. I wonder if it's at the
Someone,
Fitzgerald Theater.
they rewrote the lyrics and they
I forget the
sang
name of the group that's doing it.
at the Rockville Hometown Holidays celebration. That we happened to run into the group. They sing really beautifully. So I want to see it.
Is it
Hopefully
gonna be
it's not come and gone.
is it gonna be a singing thing?
Oh,
or-
it's around the 15th or 20th. Oh, yeah, it's singing.
Oh,
They,
thank you, Monica.
Is it a performance?
thank you, Monica.
Oh, she's gone.
Oh, Monica's gone? No,
Yeah.
Kate's gone.
No,
Oh,
Kate's here.
Kate's still here. Shakespeare. Yeah. Oh, Kate takes another shot at psychology. Hmm.
As a related comment, I like your shout out to grad school dropouts.
Oh, thank you. Well, you probably figured out there's a big ambivalence theme throughout. Like there were a couple where, yeah, where people's identity doesn't quite fit anywhere. So that is a theme of the novella. Okay, are we about ready to wrap it up? Anyone have a final question or anything? No, and I think this was a great discussion. I think it's maybe there should be more discussion and less reading at some of these readings. All right, sounds good. Have a great night, everyone.
Good night,
I'll see you
everybody.
all
Thanks for
here and
coming.
there. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Sure.